The bride ran out of her own wedding and into the wrong man's truck. 3 minutes before Emily Harper was supposed to say "I do," she realized she was not afraid of marriage. She was afraid of marrying Ryan. That was the problem. Because Ryan Bennett was not cruel. He was not unfaithful. He did not drink too much, gamble away money, disappear for days, or raise his voice in ways that made rooms shrink. He was, by every reasonable measurement, a good man. A very good man. And that was exactly what made running feel unforgivable. The little white church in Bellwood, Washington looked like something printed on the front of a greeting card. Rain had threatened all morning, but by noon the clouds had parted just enough to let pale sunlight spill across the lawn. White roses climbed the archway. Pale blue ribbons fluttered on the pews. Every arrangement had been chosen by Emily's mother after 6 months of phone calls, spreadsheets, and the phrase, "You'll thank me later." Inside the bridal room, Emily stood in front of a tall mirror, wearing a dress she had once described as classic, romantic, and only slightly financially irresponsible. Today, it looked like evidence. Her blonde hair was pinned into soft curls. Her makeup was flawless. Her veil fell over her shoulders like something borrowed from a calmer woman. Molly Sanchez, her maid of honor, stood behind her holding a lipstick tube and watching her too closely. "You look beautiful," Molly said. Emily smiled automatically. She had become very good at automatic smiles. "Thank you." Molly narrowed her eyes. "That was your school picture smile. I'm a teacher. I have several. That was the one you use when a parent asks if their child is gifted because he can spell dinosaur." Emily tried to laugh. It came out thin. Outside the door, the church hummed with guests. Someone laughed. Someone's baby started crying and was quickly carried away. From the sanctuary came the faint sound of a string quartet warming up. Everything was happening exactly as planned. That was what terrified her. Her mother, Claire, burst in carrying a clipboard as if the wedding were a military operation with floral accents. 2 minutes, Claire said. "Emily, sweetheart, you're pale. I'm fine. You're nervous. That's normal. Every bride gets nervous." Molly muttered. "Some brides also develop the facial expression of a hostage." Claire ignored her. Emily looked down at her bouquet. White roses, baby's breath. One tiny blue ribbon tied around the stems because Claire said every bride needed something blue, and Emily had been too tired to argue. Too tired. That had been the theme of her engagement. Too tired to argue about the venue. Too tired to explain that she hated chicken piccata. Too tired to say she didn't want a honeymoon cruise because the ocean made her feel trapped, and Ryan said, "You'll love it once we're there." Ryan always said that. "You'll love it once we're there. You'll feel better after the decision is made. You worry too much, Em. He never meant harm." That was the thing she kept coming back to. Ryan never meant harm. A knock came at the door. Claire opened it a crack, spoke to someone, then turned back with bright, damp eyes. "Your father's ready. Ryan is waiting. Everyone is waiting. Everyone." The word pressed against Emily's ribs. She nodded. "I just need 1 second." Claire softened. "Sweetheart, this is the beginning of your life." Emily looked at herself in the mirror. "No," she thought. "It feels like the end of something I never got to name." Claire stepped out to check the aisle order. Molly stayed. The moment the door closed, Molly's voice dropped. "Emily, don't. I haven't said anything. You're about to. Because you look like you're walking toward a dentist who also owes you money." Emily squeezed the bouquet. Molly came closer. "If no one would be disappointed, would you still walk down that aisle?" Emily opened her mouth. No sound came. Before she could answer, voices drifted through the thin wall near the hallway. Ryan's voice. Calm, warm, familiar. "She's probably just nervous," he said. Another man laughed softly. "His best man, Daniel." "Cold feet?" "No," Ryan said. "Emily's not impulsive." Emily stood very still. Ryan continued, almost fondly. "She just overthinks. But love settles eventually. Marriage is mostly about choosing stability." The words were not cruel. That made them worse. Marriage is mostly about choosing stability. Emily felt something inside her go quiet. Not break, not explode, just stop pretending, because Ryan had not revealed some terrible secret. He had simply described the agreement she had made without ever signing it honestly. She had chosen stability and chosen the man who looked safe in family photos, the man her mother loved, the man who had a retirement account, good manners, and the ability to make every future sound practical. She had chosen the life that made sense, but not the one that made her feel alive. Molly was watching her. Emily could hear the quartet begin the processional. Claire opened the door again. "It's time." Emily looked at her mother. At Molly. At the veil. At the bouquet. At the hallway leading to the sanctuary where Ryan stood waiting with kind eyes and a future she could survive but not fully live. Her chest tightened. "I can't," she whispered. Claire blinked. "Of course you can." "No." Emily's voice shook. "I can't." Molly stepped forward. "Emily, breathe." But Emily was already moving. Not gracefully. Not dramatically. She turned, lifted the front of her dress, and ran toward the back door of the church. "Emily!" Claire cried. Someone shouted her name from the hallway. Her heel caught on the hem. She kicked one shoe off and kept going. The bouquet smacked against a wall. A rose broke loose and fell behind her like a tiny white alarm. She burst through the back door into sunlight. The parking lot blurred. Cars, trees, gravel, a delivery van, a pickup truck idling near the side entrance. Emily did not think. Thinking had gotten her here. She yanked open the passenger door of the closest truck and climbed in, dress spilling everywhere like a satin avalanche. The man behind the wheel froze with a sandwich halfway to his mouth. He had dark hair, grease on one wrist, and the expression of someone whose lunch had just become legally complicated. Emily slammed the door. "Drive." He looked at her wedding dress, then at the church, then back at her. "Are you being kidnapped?" "Technically," she gasped. "I'm escaping." The back door of the church flew open behind them. People started shouting. The man slowly lowered his sandwich. Then he asked, very seriously, "How many crimes are we committing today?" The man in the truck did not drive immediately. He looked at Emily, then at the church, then at the sandwich in his hand, as if regretting every choice that had led him to this exact parking lot. "Please," Emily said. That did it. He dropped the sandwich into the paper wrapper, shifted the truck into gear, and pulled away just as 3 bridesmaids, 1 groomsman, and Emily's mother came rushing out of the church. "Is anyone chasing us with a weapon?" he asked. "No." "Good. That lowers the felony mood." Emily twisted in her seat, watching the church grow smaller behind them. Her phone began buzzing, then buzzing again, then ringing, then buzzing so violently in her lap it looked personally offended. The man glanced at it. "Popular bride." "Former bride," Emily said. "Recent development?" "Very." He nodded, as if runaway brides climbed into his truck every Thursday. "I'm Jake," he said. "For the police report." Emily gave a breathless, broken laugh before she could stop herself. "Emily. Nice to meet you, Emily. Any preferred destination that doesn't involve federal charges?" "I don't know. Home? No. Friend's house? No. Airport?" She stared at him. "Too dramatic?" "A little." Jake considered this, then turned onto the highway. "There's a diner 10 miles out. Pancakes, bad coffee, excellent place for emotional emergencies." Emily wiped under one eye, probably destroying several $100s of makeup. "Do they allow wedding dresses?" "They allow truckers at 4 a.m., wearing pajamas and regret. You'll be fine." The diner was called Marlene's, with a flickering neon sign and windows fogged from the heat inside. The second Emily stepped through the door, every fork in the room stopped moving. Jake stepped in behind her and raised both hands. She entered the vehicle voluntarily. An elderly woman in a purple cardigan narrowed her eyes. "That's what kidnappers say." Jake pointed at Emily. "Tell her." Emily opened her mouth, then burst out laughing. It startled her. The sound came out cracked and wet and halfway to crying, but it was still laughter. "I'm not kidnapped," she said. The old woman looked disappointed. "Shame. Would have been the most interesting thing to happen here since Carl found a raccoon in the jukebox." They sat in a back booth. Emily's dress took up most of the seat, part of the aisle, and possibly an adjoining county. Jake flagged down the waitress. "She needs pancakes," he said, "and I need legal immunity." The waitress glanced at Emily's veil. "Honey, maple syrup or powdered sugar?" Emily blinked. "I don't know." "Maple," Jake said. "Powdered sugar on that dress would look like a crime scene." Soon, pancakes arrived. Emily stared at them like they were instructions in a language she didn't speak. Her phone lit up again. She flipped it face down. Jake did not ask for details. That was the strange thing. Everyone else in her life would have asked immediately. Why? What happened? What were you thinking? Do you know what this means? Jake only poured syrup onto his pancakes and said, "For what it's worth, I was only at the church delivering flowers. I don't usually participate in bridal evacuations." "You were delivering flowers?" "My cousin owns the shop. Her van broke down. I own a truck and make poor decisions for family." Emily glanced at his grease-marked sleeve. "What do you actually do?" "Mechanic. Garage in Oak Ridge." "So you fix things." "Machines," he said. "People are above my certification level." That made her smile. A real one this time. Jake noticed, but he didn't make a big deal of it. He just cut into his pancakes. Across the diner, the woman in the purple cardigan was still watching them. Finally, she shuffled over. "You sure you're all right, sweetheart?" Emily nodded. "I'm sure." The woman turned to Jake. "Show me your driver's license." Jake sighed and pulled out his wallet. "This is the third time today I've looked suspicious while sitting still." The woman inspected it. "Jake Sullivan," she read. "You look taller and gilt. I get that a lot." Emily laughed again, and this time it didn't hurt as much. For a few minutes they ate in oddly peaceful silence. Then Jake said, "You don't have to tell me." Emily looked up. "Whatever happened," he said. "You don't have to explain it to a stranger with mediocre pancakes. They're actually good. Emotion makes carbs more persuasive." She stared at her plate. "I heard him say marriage is mostly about choosing stability." Jake waited. "He wasn't wrong," Emily said. "That's the problem. He wasn't being cruel, he was being honest. And you? I think I've been honest with everyone except myself." Jake's expression softened. Still, he did not give advice. No speech. No heroic declaration about following her heart. Just quiet. It made Emily realize how rarely anyone let her have a feeling without trying to manage it. Her phone rang again. "Ryan." She stared at the name. Jake looked away, giving her privacy she had not asked for and somehow needed. Emily answered. "Ryan." There was a pause. Then his voice came through, tight and controlled. "Do you realize what you've done?" Emily closed her eyes. "Just that. Do you realize what you've done?" Around her, the diner hummed softly. Plates clinked. Coffee poured. Jake sat across from her, silent. Emily looked down at her dress, at the syrup near her sleeve, at the life she had just ruined or saved. "I think I'm starting to," she said. Then she hung up. The phone immediately rang again. Emily turned it off. For the first time all day, the silence felt like something she had chosen. Emily did not go home that night. She told herself it was because her phone was dead, her dress was ruined, and no woman should be forced to explain a canceled wedding while wearing maple syrup. But the truth was quieter. She was not ready to see the faces. Her mother's disappointment, Ryan's hurt, her father's confused gentleness, Molly's worried eyes. So when Jake offered the small apartment above his garage for one weekend, Emily accepted before pride could stop her. Only one weekend. No promises, no meaning, just a bed, a locked door, and enough distance to hear herself think. The apartment was small and plainly lived in. A faded couch, a kitchen table with one uneven leg, books stacked beside a toolbox, a plant near the window that looked both heroic and deeply neglected. Nothing matched. Nothing was staged. Emily stood in the middle of it wearing Jake's old flannel shirt over her wedding dress because the zipper had jammed and neither of them had been emotionally prepared to discuss it. For the first time all day, she looked ridiculous enough to feel real. The next morning, Jake tried to make breakfast. It ended with smoke, a pan in the yard, and Jake waving a dish towel under the smoke detector while insisting the eggs were just aggressively toasted. Emily laughed from the doorway, barefoot, wrapped in a borrowed blanket. The neighbor's dog, a shaggy brown creature named Waffles, took the open door as a personal invitation and charged inside, stole one piece of burned toast, and vanished like a criminal with excellent instincts. Jake watched him go. Emily laughed harder. The garage below was no more organized than the apartment above. Tools hung on the walls, but not always where Jake expected them. Old radios sat beside engine parts. A coffee mug held screws. Another held actual coffee. Emily learned too late there was no visual difference. At one point, she found Jake watering a half-dead basil plant with a plastic measuring cup marked for motor oil. She stared. Jake followed her gaze, then looked mildly offended. "It's clean. It says 10W, 30 on the side. That's just its past." She should have been horrified. Instead, she felt something loosen in her chest. Jake's world was imperfect in ways no one apologized for. A cabinet door squeaked. The bathroom mirror had a crack in the corner. His truck coughed before starting, despite the fact that he repaired cars for a living. But there was no performance here. No one asked her to smile for photos. On Saturday afternoon, Emily finally changed out of the dress. Jake's cousin brought sweatpants, a t-shirt, and the kind of sympathetic silence women offer when they know questions can wait. The wedding dress hung from a pipe in the garage, absurd and ghost-like. Emily tried not to look at it. That evening, she and Jake sat on the flat roof above the garage, watching the sky turn orange behind the tree line. Below them, Waffles barked at a trash can he had apparently known for years and still distrusted. Jake told her about his own almost wedding, not dramatically, not bitterly. He had been engaged at 28 to a woman named Tessa, who loved him but wanted a larger life than Oak Ridge, larger than the garage, larger than a man who seemed content fixing other people's cars and eating cereal for dinner. 3 months before the wedding, she gave back the ring. She told him he was good, just not enough. Jake said it like a joke had been made at his expense long ago and he had decided to laugh first. Emily understood that kind of wound. She told him about being the dependable daughter, the easy child, the girl who learned early that peace in a family often came from swallowing the truth before it caused trouble. She told him how Ryan had never forced her into anything, how somehow that made it harder to admit she had been disappearing anyway. The sun went down slowly. Neither of them rushed to fill the silence. That was how the closeness grew, not from grand confessions, but from the relief of not being corrected. By Sunday morning, Emily had begun to dread leaving. Not because she imagined some instant fairy tale future with the mechanic who had accidentally become her getaway driver, but because the life waiting for her would demand answers she still did not fully have. She was helping Jake sort invoices in the garage when Molly's name flashed on Jake's borrowed charger beside her phone. Emily answered quickly. Molly's voice was tight. Her mother had been taken to the hospital. Stress, high blood pressure, dizziness at home. Nothing fatal, Molly said, but serious enough. Emily sat down on the nearest stool. The garage sounds faded. For one selfish second, she wanted to stay hidden in this messy little pocket of the world where no one needed anything from her. Then guilt arrived, familiar and sharp. Jake did not touch her. He only set the invoices aside and reached for his truck keys. Emily looked at him. The weekend was over. The running was over. She had to go back. Not because she knew what to say, but because silence had become another kind of lie. The hospital waiting room was too bright. Emily noticed that first. Not her father sitting with his elbows on his knees. Not Molly standing near the vending machine with red eyes. Not Ryan in his wrinkled wedding suit, looking as though he had aged 5 years since she last saw him. The brightness. It made everything feel exposed. Her mother was stable, the nurse said, resting, blood pressure coming down. They could see her soon, one at a time. Emily nodded, but no one moved toward her. For a few seconds, she stood in the doorway with Jake behind her, wearing borrowed jeans and a sweatshirt, her hair still carrying faint traces of bridal pins. Then Claire's voice came from the open hospital room. "Is she here?" Emily stepped inside. Claire looked smaller in the hospital bed, but her anger filled the room easily. "You ran," her mother said. Emily swallowed. "I know. From your wedding. I know. In front of everyone." Her father looked at the floor. Molly's face tightened. Ryan stood near the window, silent. Claire's eyes filled, but her voice stayed sharp. "You're throwing away a good life." The sentence landed exactly where Emily knew it would. For years that had been the family prayer. A good and safe life. A life no one could criticize. Emily looked at Ryan, then at her mother. Something in her steadied. "No," she said softly. "I was throwing away myself." The room went quiet. Claire blinked as if Emily had spoken in another language. Emily's hands shook, but she kept going. She apologized for running, for humiliating Ryan, for frightening her family, for letting the silence go on until it exploded in the worst possible way, but she did not apologize for not getting married. That distinction cost her everything, and gave her something back. Later, Ryan asked to speak with her alone. They sat in a small courtyard outside the hospital, beneath a tree that had dropped yellow leaves onto the bench. He looked exhausted. Not angry now, just wounded. That was harder. "I love you," he said. Emily closed her eyes. "I know. I would have listened if you'd told me." Maybe he believed that. Maybe it was even true. But Emily thought of all the small times she had tried. The honeymoon, the house near his office, the guest list, the way her life had become a series of reasonable compromises until there was almost nothing unreasonable left in her. "I didn't know how to say it in a way that wouldn't make me the problem," she said. Ryan's jaw tightened. "I still want to try," he said. "If you do." And there it was. The safe door left open. The future everyone understood. A man who loved her, even imperfectly. A family that would eventually forgive. A life that could be repaired if she was willing to fold herself carefully back into it. Emily looked through the hospital window. Jake stood near the vending machines, giving them space. Molly was beside him, probably interrogating him with the protective violence of friendship. He was not the reason. That mattered. Emily turned back to Ryan. "You deserve someone who chooses you without having to talk herself into it." His face changed, and she hated herself for the pain there. "And you?" he asked. "I deserve to stop pretending." The words were simple, final. She gave back the ring with both hands. Ryan took it like something hot. Neither of them hated each other. That almost made it worse. By evening, Claire had cried, Ryan had left, and Emily felt as if she had survived a storm only to find the house gone. Jake drove her back to the garage in silence. She was grateful for that. When they arrived, he did not turn off the engine right away. "I'm leaving town tomorrow," he said. Emily looked at him. "What?" "My cousin in Oregon needs help at her shop for a few weeks." "You didn't mention that." "Because I decided 10 minutes ago." Her chest tightened. Jake stared through the windshield. "I don't want to be your escape route." Emily said nothing. "You just walked away from a whole life," he continued. "I'm not going to stand close enough that you accidentally walk into mine because it feels warmer." The fairness of it hurt. "I didn't cancel the wedding because of you," she said. "I know." "Then why leave?" "Because I want you to know it too." Emily looked at him then, really looked, at the grease under his fingernail, the tired kindness in his face. The man who had driven when she asked, listened when she broke, and now cared enough not to become another decision made in panic. Her throat burned. Jake finally turned off the engine. "If, when everything gets quiet, you still want to find me," he said, "you'll know where the garage is." He got out first. Emily stayed in the truck, hands folded in her lap. For the first time, she understood that love was not always the person who stayed closest. Sometimes it was the person brave enough to step back so you could hear your own heart clearly. And the ache she felt watching Jake walk away told her the truth she was not ready to say out loud. 3 months later, Emily lived alone in a small apartment above a bookstore. It was not impressive. The pipes made strange noises at night. The kitchen window stuck when it rained. Her couch was second-hand. Her plates did not match. And the only plant she owned had survived mostly because one of her students reminded her every Friday to water it. But every object in that apartment had been chosen by her. That made it beautiful. She returned to teaching in September. The first week was hard. Parents whispered. Some avoided mentioning the wedding. Others mentioned it too loudly, as if sympathy needed volume. Emily survived. Then, slowly, she began to live. She had dinner with Molly every Thursday. She visited her mother on Sundays. Some visits ended in tears, some in laughter, and some in the kind of careful silence people use when they are learning how to love each other differently. Claire still struggled to understand. But one afternoon, while they folded laundry together, she touched Emily's hand and said, "I thought safety was the same as happiness." Emily squeezed her fingers. "So did I. Ryan moved to Portland, for a new position. Before he left, he sent Emily a short message. 'I hope you find the life you were trying to tell me about.'" She cried when she read it. Not because she wanted him back. Because forgiveness, when it finally arrived, felt quieter than she expected. Jake kept his promise. He did not call, did not text, did not appear outside her school with flowers like a man in a movie who believed boundaries were obstacles for better lighting. For 3 months, he gave her exactly what he had said he would. Space. And in that space, Emily learned the difference between missing someone and needing them to rescue her. She missed Jake in ordinary moments, when her car made a strange noise, when she burned toast and thought of his aggressively toasted eggs, when Molly sent her a photo of a dog that looked like waffles and wrote, "Your emotional support criminal." She missed his quiet most of all, the way he had let her become honest without rushing to be the answer. On the last Friday of summer, Emily drove to Oak Ridge. Her hands were steady on the wheel. That surprised her. The garage looked exactly the same. Faded sign, open bay doors, radio playing somewhere inside, Waffles asleep in a patch of sunlight like he owned the business and several neighboring properties. Jake came out from under the hood of an old Chevy, wiping his hands on a rag. He stopped when he saw her. For a moment, neither spoke. Then he looked at her car. "Something wrong with it?" Emily smiled. "No." Jake glanced at the tires anyway, because apparently mechanics experienced emotions through diagnostics. "You sure?" "Actually," she said, "I came to return something." His brow furrowed. "What?" "The future I almost settled for." Jake stared at her. Waffles lifted his head, judged them both, and went back to sleep. "I'm going to need that sentence inspected," Jake said. Emily laughed. Nervous now, but not afraid. "I spent 3 months building a life that's mine. Not my mother's, not Ryan's, not yours, mine." She took a breath. "And I realized something." Jake's face softened. "I didn't run into your truck because you were my destiny," she said. "I ran into it because it was unlocked." "That's very romantic." "I'm getting there. Please do." She stepped closer. "I don't want you to be my escape route, Jake." His eyes searched hers. "I want to ask you to dinner." He went still. "A real dinner," she added. "Not pancakes after a felony-adjacent bridal incident. Not a crisis. Not me hiding from my life." Jake looked at her for a long time. Then, quietly, he asked, "So you're choosing me?" Emily smiled. "No." His face fell so fast she almost laughed, but she took his hand before he could step back. "I'm choosing myself," she said. Jake looked down at their hands. Emily squeezed his fingers. "And you're the person I want standing beside me when I do." The words settled between them, honest, unrushed, enough. Jake's smile came slowly, like he did not quite trust it yet. Then Waffles sneezed loudly from the doorway. Jake sighed. "He approves. He looks unconscious. That's his highest blessing." Emily laughed, and Jake laughed with her. A few minutes later, he opened the passenger door of his old pickup. Emily looked at the seat, the same seat she had climbed into 3 months earlier, sobbing, half barefoot, drowning in satin and panic. This time, she stepped in calmly. No wedding dress or ringing phone. No crowd chasing her from behind. Jake got behind the wheel. "Where to?" he asked. Emily looked out at the road ahead, golden in the late summer light. "Anywhere with decent pancakes." Jake started the truck. It rolled slowly out of the garage lot and toward the setting sun. For the first time in her life, Emily was not choosing the safest road. She was choosing the truest one. And this time, she was not running away. She was finally arriving. Before you go, take a moment to think about what this story is really about. At first, it seems like a story about a runaway bride. Then it becomes a love story. But underneath all of that, it's really a story about courage. Not the kind of courage that makes headlines. Not the kind that looks dramatic from the outside. The quieter kind. The kind it takes to admit that you've been living a life that makes sense to everyone except you. Emily didn't run away because Ryan was a bad man. She ran because she finally realized that a good life and the right life are not always the same thing. Sometimes the hardest decisions aren't between right and wrong. They're between what feels safe and what feels true. And many of us know exactly how that feels. Maybe you've stayed in a job because it was secure. Maybe you've remained in a relationship because it was comfortable. Maybe you've spent years becoming the person everyone expected you to be, while quietly wondering what happened to the person you wanted to be. The truth is, choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's responsibility. Because every time we ignore our deepest truths, we ask someone else to love a version of us that isn't fully real, and that's not fair to them or to us. So here's a question for you. Have you ever walked away from something that looked perfect on the outside because you knew it wasn't right for you? Or have you ever stayed too long because you were afraid of disappointing other people? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to Soul Stirring Stories for more. The bravest choice isn't always the safest one. Sometimes it's simply the most honest, and sometimes that's where the real story begins.